Hello there, Steve here in Sydney. I'll be late in Gnosis website, truebluehealer.com, where in just 20 minutes you can get physical evidence, that's takeaway repeating evidence, that your divine spark has been activated. This is in everybody. You can all do this. It results in some remarkable physiological, biochemical and mental changes in yourself. Basically, you're flowering. And it'll start with some vivid messaging dreams, and later on, months down the track, you'll get an internal mentoring voice, and you'll find you'll get some help steering your way through the ever-growing avalanche of mis and disinformation that rains upon you, especially off the internet. We live in a world of lies and deception, I regret to say, and that's holding us back. But layman's gnosis gives you considerable hope that you can navigate your way through it to optimize, to maximize the benefits of living your personal life story. Last video I just uploaded might have surprised everybody, regular viewers, but it's really to remind you how stagnant our science is and how we're locked in seemingly a battle between materialists and non-materialist people. Uniformitarianism was a product of the 19th century with Lyell, Mr. Lyell, a noted geologist, who he decided that all the evidence he could see around him was that everything happened slowly. So rocks were slowly sandpapered, shiny, clean, and worn down over many, many millions of years and that sort of thing. And Darwin was a great admirer of him and applied that line of thinking that animals must be created slowly by random mutations, and given enough time, accidents could produce everything that we have today in terms of wildlife and people, which is complete and utter poppycock, because the whole theory is based on uniformitarianism, that basically nothing changes perceptibly. If you stand there and watch things, nothing will actually change because your lifetime is too short. And also, Darwinism and Lyellism were the first sort of scientific rationale for head-kicking the church and Christianity in the Western world. So it was taken up with a vengeance by the pseudo-scientific intelligentsia of the 19th century who wanted to practice social Darwinism and justify their huge wealth they had amassed. That sort of thing, against the peasants who never really got anywhere despite their hard work, that sort of thing. So, and Darwinism still is a major part of your thinking. You can't escape it. You probably can't go more than a day without having evolution pushed at you one way or another. If it's typically dinosaur pictures, something like that. They used to sell everything, merchandising. So you probably don't realise how much that and the Big Bang, which was a Catholic Church hijacking of evolution, basically, and a very successful one at that, done by Georges Lemaitre. He talked Einstein, who was already been made a saint by 1930. He was a deity, and he signed off on it and said the world started just like Genesis did in the Bible. That's basically it. And that's a stunning propaganda coup by the Catholic Church. He was a Catholic priest astronomer who was a friend of Einstein and talked him into the beauty of the Big Bang, which was all based on a misinterpretation of the redshift. And that's been utterly disproven in the last 100 years many times over. But science still hangs on to St. Einstein's declaration in the 1930s. So Einstein has held science back a lot. So has Darwinism, so has uniformitarianism, and that was the theme of that little Thunderbolts video I threw at you previously. It's just a reminder that science hasn't advanced one step, and it's almost looks like NASA. You've heard of controlled media and controlled opposition. It's making NASA look like controlled science, because they always say when they discover something new at a planet, oh well, back to the drawing board, which is tacit admission they don't know what they're talking about, and they're still using 200 and 300-year-old theories to explain the origin of the solar system. And they're not allowed to advance beyond that. because of the hold that St. Einstein has in the Zionist publishing empire. Most of our publishing today is owned by a handful of one Zionist ethnic group, and they've got to keep Einstein as a living saint, or a deceased saint now, even more saintly after he's dead, though all of his teachings have really been proven false. It's now been revealed that gravity travels, I think it's 20 billion times faster than light. It has been calculated. So light's not the fastest thing in the universe, it's actually a slowpoke sort of a thing. And we've all been wrongly programmed by Albert Einstein. So, and he was a fraud to boot. He stole all his work. His wife stole it, by the way. His wife did all the spade work for the paper he first presented on relativity. And she said if ever he wins the Nobel Prize, she has to get the cash or she'll blow the whistle. There was a written agreement to this effect, and he did obediently hand her his Nobel Prize cash. To his separated wife, he did. So most of modern science, the last 100 years, hasn't gone forward because Einstein was wrong. But we've been held to it by the Zionist publishing empire. Just thought I'd tell you that. And that's why I gave you the last video, to give you some idea that pseudoscience is the basis of our modern society, not a real provable science that's repeatable in a laboratory. Relativity and cosmology that we see today with the Big Bang is really an ongoing money-making religion, a gravy train for a whole lot of academics around the world who just keep repeating the same phrases and keywords and getting more and more money to invent patches to keep the Big Bang theory going. How long you can keep patching it, I don't know. Sooner or later, most people are going to see through it. And the Electric Universe is reporting, the Thunderbolts people who produced that video, they are reporting a slow but positive thawing of the stupidity of NASA. Some of their noted researchers are now waking up to the possibility that electrostatic forces can produce sand dunes on meteors, comets, and on the surface of Mars and the surface of the Moon and moons of Jupiter. So electric forces are slowly being addressed, but we've lost 100 years thanks to Einstein, who knew nothing about electricity. Not one thing did he know about it, and we've suffered grievously because of that. On other current matters, when we thought we'd finally put the Cold War behind us, we seem to have another Cold War starting with a North Korean rogue state that's threatening everybody with nuclear annihilation, and left alone to his own devices, the insane leadership, the hereditary dictatorship is only going to get stronger. More and more nukes will it have. And where do you think the missiles come from? They're actually American missiles they're firing. They're stolen by the Chinese. The designs are put together in China and sold to North Korea. Okay, so China's not innocent in this at all, and neither are the American government. It was the Clinton administration that provided reactors to North Korea to produce fissionable material. So you can thank the Clinton administration, Hillary Clinton, who gave 20% of American uranium to the Russians, that sort of thing. And, well, you can thank America for supplying all the nuclear fissionable weapons material they need for North Korea to throw 20, 30 nukes in about 3 or 4 years' time. It's crazy, isn't it? What a crackpot, crazy world we live in, where you supply our worst enemies with the worst weapons. Goodness gracious. America has been a superpower. It still is, while it has a navy. I suspect at a short exchange with Korea, they could lose half their navy easily. Flat top carriers are very easy to knock out today with a cheap $200,000 missile that comes in at Mark III, such as the Russian Sunburn missile coming in at Mark III. It doesn't even need a warhead. It pierces the aircraft carrier from one side to the other, and just the shrapnel disables the ship. So you can leave an aircraft carrier, a disabled floating hulk, with a single $200,000 warhead. Cruise missiles are incredibly cheap. They're really only a jet engine, a couple of wings and a nose cone with a GPS guidance system, for goodness sake. So it won't be long before anybody and his dog can make cruise missiles. The Americans have got phalanx guns to stop incoming missiles and that sort of thing, but you need a couple of seconds warning, a few seconds warning to stop things coming in. Early model cruise missiles came in sea skimming below the radar, and you couldn't see them till they were coming at you, and you had a few seconds to knock them out with a phalanx gun or something like that. Now the Americans on some ships have got 3-coloured lasers, which are 200 times more efficient than single white light lasers, single frequency light lasers, I mean. And they're now talking about being able to knock down incoming missiles. But I don't know if the enemy will help you by just firing one missile at a time. What if they fire a dozen cruise missiles at you from all directions? I can only see the end of sea power, the end of navies as an instrument of power, because any land-based sort of regime that can afford cheap missiles can make itself unapproachable by any navy, as far as I can tell. Iran has already won 2 computer wars with the US fleet. The US fleet was annihilated by land-based missiles coming out of Iran in 2 computer simulations. That doesn't bode well for the future of naval warfare. Maybe naval warfare will be stopping soon. It could all be removed from the world's fleets soon. It would certainly put all nations then in a greater, a more complex position of trying to project power in foreign geopolitical domains. There seems to be great disappointment all over the internet, where people are realising that Donald Trump is not really the emperor, that he's been surrounded by deep state globalists, and the hand-picked few people, the favourites that he had, the renegade favourites that he had, have all been seriously marginalised, had their security clearances revoked, like John Bannon, that sort of thing. And it's slowly coming to the fore that Donald Trump is nowhere near as powerful as he thought he would be, and as we all thought he would be in our naive sort of way. By the way, Barack Obama had the same problem. He didn't pick his own cabinet. It was built around him by the deep state, by the 7th floor in the State Department, those people. So Barack Obama actually got Hillary Clinton's cabinet, whether he liked it or not, and Donald Trump has got the deep state's cabinet, really. He's got CFR people and all these other people, avowed globalists, Rothschilds, bankers, all the whole thing, and Goldman Sachs, and the Federal Reserve is slowly, no one's talking about that anymore, no audit coming of that. And the chickens are coming home to roost now for Donald Trump, in the sense that a booby trap laid for him by Obama was that Obama spent more money than all the American presidents combined. He spent twice as much money as all previous presidents before him, deliberately to destroy America with debt. So he was happy to give away $10 billion to Iran, happy to give away $2 billion to publicise climate change hysteria through all his left-wing lobby groups. That was taken from NASA, by the way. They did less science and more global warming hysteria under Obama's reign. Mercifully, Donald Trump has cancelled that spending, but I suspect it'll be put back in place, because I think Donald Trump will slowly come to realise that he's nowhere near as powerful as he hoped. He cannot really make the changes because they've run out of money this month. There's no money to do infrastructure building to all the bridges and tunnels, and there's no money for the wall. We've been told it's going to be put off till September now, the financing of it or something. I suppose the American way would be to privatise the wall and turn it into a self-managing, self-funding corporation, so that if you want to cross the border it costs money and gate fees will be used to produce and maintain the wall. That would be truly the American way, wouldn't it? I can't wait for that one. Maybe the Wall Project could just be given to General Dynamics or Fairchild or Grumman or one of those big multinational corporations, General Dynamics, something like that. They do everything else, don't they, for America? Grave disappointment is showing all over the internet. People are noticing that Trump has calmed down, he's stopped tweeting. And can I just say something about, just practice a bit of empathy. If you're in his position and you're surrounded by basically your enemies, your deep state enemies, and you're going to change the world, well, it doesn't really take much to convince you that you're nowhere near as powerful as you think you are as president. And what if people just pretend to be deaf when you're talking to them? What's your next move? What are you going to do, Mr. President, if I just pretend to be deaf while you're giving me orders? Oh, I'll replace you, I'll sack you, I'll get somebody else. Well, the next person can do the same game, and that order will never be carried out. You can just be ignored. No one's forced to listen to you, Mr. President. If Donald Trump gets too aggressive and too energetic about enforcing his seemingly first sold as revolutionary regime, then it wouldn't take much, would it? You just imagine if you were in the White House, you're at the urinal and someone says to you, well, you've already been called JFK, haven't you, by Bill Gates, the computer man. He said, you're another JFK. What a great threat that was from afar, the system saying you just look just like JFK. What a hint that was. So, if he wants to audit the Fed, if he wants to keep including around himself his own favourites and rejects all the swamp creatures, well, that really limits your tenure in office, doesn't it, Mr. President? Someone's already got the plans for a ticker tape parade through Dealey Plaza for you, and there's some people waiting for you on the grassy knoll. Wouldn't you enjoy a presidential ticker tape parade? It's so easy to say that at the urinal. It really is. And you'd better behave, or otherwise you'll go down in history as JFK too. You'll be heroic, and your family can also be attacked. So you better let your son-in-law, who's a Mossad fellow, actually working for another group, let your son-in-law do American foreign policy. Now, on Jared Kushner, his son-in-law married to his daughter, he's being sold as a genius, isn't he? Well, I suspect he's not a genius, and I suspect he's doing the old George W. Bush trick of having an invisible earpiece, Bluetoothing to his handheld mobile phone, and he's getting, wherever he meets people, he's going to be told in advance some little charming anecdote to win someone's confidence and say, wow, Jared Kushner's so clever, he knew all about my home country. He must be a genius. Yet he's just being briefed in his earpiece. George W. Bush used to do that. Do you remember? And he was making translators fall off their chairs in surprise at the detailed knowledge George W. Bush had of the translators' home countries. So Jared Kushner would seem to be a Mossad asset or some other group, likely Mossad, because he's a devout Jew of a very disliked sect. And it's almost certain he's just being told what to say. He's a puppet. And you can see how Donald Trump will probably say words to the effect, well, you can do foreign policy, you can just keep bombing countries into the Stone Age, and I will do, I'll do a bit of American foreign policy and pretend to be president. You just let me build a few bridges, build a few buildings, maybe start the wall in a year's time, maybe. Let me do that. Will you let me do that? And I can stay alive as president. That would seem to be what's happening. People, in his defence, can I say this? What would you do in his place? The North Korean situation, could you sleep? I don't think I could sleep if I knew that by action or inaction, by missing something, by being slow to respond to something, I could start thermonuclear war that destroys the planet. And the problem's only going to get worse if you don't do anything. And whatever you do is fraught with dangers of the highest magnitude. So we've got threats coming out of America of nuking Korea, that sort of thing. And at the same time, like a mad rabid barking dog, we've got Vladimir Putin threatening Britain with annihilation with a single bomb if they dare to get involved in the North Korean thing. Vladimir Putin seems to be trying to stop everyone from using nuclear weapons by threatening everybody else with his nukes, seemingly believing that he will be left standing unharmed in the ashes of the Soviet Union, which I think is rather a forlorn hope. So could you sleep with all that responsibility on your shoulders at 70 years old? Do you think you're at a time of your life where most people want to relax and retire, and he's taken on the most distressing responsibilities possible? I couldn't possibly function in that position. I couldn't get a good night's sleep, knowing that if I went to bed early and went to bed late, that could determine a bad decision that I made in the morning that starts World War III. Remember that Secretary of State people in the US government never finish their term. Job stress destroys them. Likewise, I think job stress probably weakens a lot of presidents. I think you'd be in a state of permanent post-traumatic stress disorder, and trying to put on a cheery face while you've got idiots like that North Korean dictator threatening you with annihilation. How could you be happy knowing that there's missiles pointed at you all the time from an insane child of North Korea? Just playfully, I'll point out that about the only way I can see really of draining the swamp and actually clearing it all out is impossible, because it would require a successful launch of a missile from Korea to hit Washington first. That's about the only real way I can see of dislodging the New World Order, literally incinerate it, turn it to glass. And I don't want to see that. So we're better off with the devil we know than the devil we don't know, aren't we? I'm only throwing that in as a thought experiment, something grisly to consider, with only with a mildly positive upside, and a very, very distasteful one at that. Just something about nuclear conflicts. I don't know if they can really ever ascertain who fired the first shot, because there's always this thing about who started it, gives you the moral high ground to fire back 30 more nukes or something. What would you do, say, all right, North Korea starts engaging with the American flat tops, they lose a flat top, and then they find 2 of their aircraft carriers are torpedoed, and there's a Russian submarine sinking them while they're fighting North Korea, or a Chinese submarine doing the same thing. How would you know who to shoot at? It's a pretty hopeless situation, isn't it? Deeply distressing, actually. And seemingly the insanity of rogue dictators around the world is going to carry us more and more, transport us more and more into these scenarios, which really can't be allowed to continue indefinitely without ruining the peace of mind of the whole planet. So what can I suggest for you? What can you do in a world of seemingly a return to the Cold War, and a worse one than that, because it used to be just 2 nations with nukes. Now it's an ever-growing little coterie of rogue nations with nuclear weapons. So uncertainty and fear is going to grow as the years go by. So what can we do? Well, about all you can do is look after your own personal little prosperity bubble where you are. You can't really affect the big picture. You're not positioned to make a difference. You certainly can, as an internet media commentator. You can get on your soapbox and do your opinions. And quite a few people have proven themselves to be better at doing this than mainstream media, such as Computing Forever, Paul Joseph Watson, etc., and plenty of other people, Next News, that sort of thing. You can do something like that. And going back to your little prosperity bubble, I would say at least go to the trouble of finding out, before you get blown away, finding out what you really are, what you're really meant to be. Try doing layman's gnosis. It's free, it takes 20 minutes, you get physical evidence, and it will greatly improve your life. No matter how long it lasts, whether it's 5 minutes or 50 years, you'll have a better life, knowing a lot more about what you really are and why you are here, okay? Layman's gnosis, 20 minutes, truebluehealer.com. Physical evidence all supplied to you, repeating scientific takeaway evidence. And with that cheery ending, I'll say goodbye.